Hello, everybody. It is I, Zion, VGC Senior from California, back today with another team building video. Today's team building is going to be vastly different from all of the other ones that we have done so far. For this one, will be for the best of one format, actually. This is for practice and preparation for the upcoming Grand Challenge 4, in which these Grand Challenges I have a lot of experience with. It's how I got into VGC, some of the very first tournaments I ever did. All of these, I've done very well in most of them, and so it's a big confidence booster every time I do one. My best placement was 29th out of about 2,000 or 3,000 during the Grand Challenge 2 last year. And I'm here to share some of that experience with you all today, with some of the best teams you could possibly build for this upcoming Grand Challenge. In VGC Regulation I, one of the most difficult formats, I believe, to build a good best of one team. So we're going to start off simple, easy here. We have our Calyrex and our, Blue Nala. Definitely just like your standard hard trick report, right? Because you have your Terrafire Calyrex, right? You want to beat things like the occasional Torkoal. It's the main thing here is to avoid those burns, right? And also because fire deals a lot of Calyrex's like main weaknesses, like of course fire itself, right? Bug, whenever that pops up, there's U-turn and things like that, and there's just a general large amount of things that can be extremely useful for. And then for our moveset, it's standard moveset, right? Glacial Lance, High Horsepower, Trick Room, Protect. I've seen some people like to run this close combat option here. If you want to get really creative for this Grand Challenge, you could run close combat, but you could also even run things like Crunch, right? This would be to deal with the opposing Lunalas, Calyrexes, right? Just like a lot of those dark weaknesses that can give Calyrex a really hard time. And for the EV spread, this is the hard trick room, right? So you want the Brave Nature, you want the 0 speed. You should have your Calyrex. Yeah, you're out a week, plenty of time. You just kind of like the standard EV spread, right? Max HP, 116 both attack and special defense. You just kind of pour the rest of these wherever you want, right? You can pour them into defense, you can pour them into attack. I think this spread makes me feel a little bit better about the damage output, right? You're still hitting that over 220 mark on the attacking stats, so even if, like, by the random chance that you're clearing that gets knocked off, right, you're still doing decent damage for this Pokemon. And then Lunala, we want just kind of like the standard powerhouse set, right? Power Herb, Meteor Beam, that quintessential combination, right? You have your Stabs, Moongeist Beam, your Expanding Force, and then, of course, another Trick Room user. There's a lot of options. I've seen some people go Grass to deal with kind of like that Spore and Moongeist type stuff, and not Ground. Fairy is another good one, right? But I personally think Water is the way to go on this. I believe Water, because into like that Cali Ice matchup, that Koraidon matchup, Water is going to be one of the most useful things you can have. And then generally, like another min speed, minus speed nature EV spread, of course. Right, you don't need as much in essential attack because of that +1 boost. It's going to be doing so much damage after about 190. Kind of put the rest into defenses. Because like Pokemon, it's just so bulky. It has such a wonderful stat spread for this purpose, right? You can even take these EVs that special defense, a little bit of special attack, and just pool all of them into defense to kind of patch up that subpar-ish stat, but still extremely good. And then, of course, every Trick Room team needs its supporter. Now that we have these two kind of offensive Trick Room restricted, we can go into our Trick Room supports. I believe that the best ones would be Smeargle and where is it? MDD. There we go. I believe Smeargle has so much more potential in this format. Potentially because of just all the millions of possible things you can do with it, and just all the potential it really has. Right, it's a Pokemon that fits really well in both of your restricteds. So I think that you want the Terra Grass, right? Being into the spores and stuff. Because also the Rage Powders from the Moongaze, they can't redirect you around spores. As well as Urshifu. That's I believe the third purpose for it is that you're not dying to Surging Strikes if you ever need to use the Terra Grass. And for the last two moves, right, you have your Quintessential Fake Out, Follow Me. It's kind of a toss-up here, right? Because what people usually do is Spore and Decorate. But if you really want to get crafty, you can even give it Trick Room. We have 3 Pokemon that already know Trick Room on this team, and so it's not entirely necessary, but it is a very interesting option. This is the reason we would do this is so you're say you have Calyrex and Smeargle on the field, right? Trick Room's about to end. Your opponent wouldn't think double protecting. Oh yeah, that's the safe play, right? Because then next turn you outspeed both Calyrex and Smeargle, you kill them both, right? And then you just kind of win the game from there. But with Trick Room, you can go for the infamous double Trick Room play, where both of your opponents use Trick Room, one of them untwists the dimensions, and the other one retwists the dimensions, so that your Trick Room turns are restored while your opponent is making that defensive play. So that this could work, and then I think you'd want Spore, because if you have Spore, if you're sleeping your opponents, or you don't need Decorate, because there's no way they're catching up with the damage potential. The match might go a little bit slower, but you are almost certainly going to win if you can execute this strategy the way it is intended to be. And for an EV spread, it gets a little tricky, but I think Fast Smeargle works, right? Because then in those early beginning turns where you're not in Trick Room, it's kind of it allows you to have a slight presence outside of Trick Room, where you could spore things that are slower, things like Raging Bolt, non-goggles Instant, sometimes even Urshifu, right? Urshifu Dark. You generally just this gives you a lot of options. And then for Ndidi, I think Safety Goggles Ndidi is absolutely the way you run this. I think Safety Goggles because of a million good cards Terra Water, Safety Goggles, right? So then you're not forced into running Terra Grass on any one of these, any one of your restricted, and it allows you to kind of redirect those spores away, right? People aren't really expecting Safety Goggles. If they don't see the Psychic Seed proc, they're expecting a Rocky Comment, right? And then obviously Follow Me, Trick Room, Heal Plus or Helping Hand. There is options with this Pokemon, right? You have the Heal Plus, you have that Helping Hand, right? You can even get crafty with it. I'm not sure, maybe Imprison. Well, Manual Psychic Terrain is very interesting, right? So say they want to switch in their Rillaboom, where you get the Fake Out on next turn, but you can just deny that instantly, which I find to be a very powerful move in this kind of format where your opponent just doesn't know what you're doing. I think we can kind of stick with the standard Heal Pulse. Not standard, Helping Hand is a standard, but I think Heal Pulse is also very interesting, right? If you're giving Lunala a Shadow Shield back, you could potentially give Smeargle's Focus Sash back, and then the last two Pokemon, which we haven't got into, it will most likely be able to benefit them. For the EV spread, you want it to be just kind of relaxed nature, right? Lots of defense, little steps of defense, max HP, right? Just the standard stuff you do within Needy. I was introduced to a concept where you can make your Needy a bit faster, right? Say faster than the standard Rillaboom, because Indeedee and Rillaboom are like the same base speed. So if you were to go something like even like Timid Indeedee with 31 speed nature, what this would do is it would always allow you to outspeed, right, like the standard Rillaboom. And so like if they want to, like, if both of them come in Trick Room, right, you will be faster. But I think that the relaxed spread is still a bit better than like the really hard Trick Room for purpose, and there are other ways you could work around the Rillaboom, but that is just like an alternate option. And then for our last two Pokemon, we have, well, generally like some of my Trick Room favorites, right? Ursaluna Blood Moon and Urshifu Dark style. I think with Ursaluna, it's just that, like, I love cooking Hyper Voice. It's one of my favorite things, right? You can go like Life Orb, right? And then these trying to set, right? Blood Moon, Hyper Voice, Earth Power, and Protect. Like I said, it's generally just like that kind of spread damage monster, right? Like you can use it in kind of your closing turns of Trick Room, right? The secondary game plan. You can like spam Follow Me with Indeedee and Smeargle, and you're just blowing your opponent up with that huge Hyper Voice button. There isn't a lot else to this Pokemon, right? It covers up some matchups that might give you trouble. Or Rhydon, it can kill with like Blood Moon. It kills basically everything with Blood Moon, actually. It's really good into CSR, in which these two, especially Lunala with that Wide Guard, kind of struggle into. And with that, speaking of things that are good in CSR, Urshifu Dark. There's a couple ways you could run this. I think that Terra Grass is the way to go. Again, with the Moongus, right? It's just the #1 threat to her Trick Room, and like, sure, we have the Indeedee, but you're not always gonna have it, so having that little bit of extra layer of defense is very nice. And then, like, your standard set for Band-Aid eating, Wicked Blow, Sucker Punch, you can find yourself out of that Psychic Trend to a Pokemon that's like kind of faster than you, Close Combat, and then there are cases with Poison Jab and Iron Head, but in Regulation R, I see Poison Jab as a bit more useful, just to hit, again, the grass types that are still ever present. Fluttermane kind of falls in usage, right? So there aren't as many fairy types that you'll be hitting with the Iron Head. The grass types that you'll be hitting with Poison Jab kind of shoot up. And there never really were any rock or ice types going around, and like the ones that there are, you're hitting with your other moves, right? Rock and Ice are already getting destroyed by Close Combat. And then EV Spread, you're not going past Band, actually. Like Adamant, and then the Speed, you can do whatever you want. Like, some people just go like in Speed, Brave, and I don't feel like doing that many hunts when I do GCs. So what you can actually do is, I like this Speed tier, right? 124 just allows you to outspeed Insane outside of Trick Room, and so, again, just kind of like an alternative mode to it. It allows you to be faster than some other things as well. But it's all very useful. And so, there is the very first team. Just like all of the other team building videos, all of these Pokepages will be available in the description down below for your personal usage. And with that, let's get to our next team. Something a bit more fast and offensive, right? And I think a good combination, right, is that of Rhydon. There we go. Kind of like your son, blow stuff up, and then wow. Okay, I'm back. Zamazenta, right? This is like more of kind of like a balance offensive, and less of like a blow your opponent up offensive, right? This is like a very cool thing that I thought about it a bit, right? Because you have your Zama, you have your Koraidon, like these two, just like as, or you can even go like Close Combat. There we go, Close Combat, Flare Blitz, right? Because like they see the clear enemy, they see that like you're not taking away the recoil from your final moves. They're thinking, okay, like they're running collision course, right? So it's not going to be doing as much damage, and like that close combat comes out, that extra 20 base power really matters. And it's whoa, my Pokemon is dead when I thought it wouldn't be. And then Zamazenta kind of to give it a more defensive support, right? To be a little bit better into those Calorexes that give Koraidon such a hard time, right? To kind of help with the Miraidon matchup a little bit with the Terra Dragon. You're kind of forcing it to like lock into one move and the other restricted and deal with it a bit better. Wide guard, right? That Sleek Gleam option is very good in the Koraidon teams, and being able to block that is very, very nice. And then for Zama EV spreads, I like Max Speed Impish. Max Speed Impish really speaks. Max Speed Impish, and then you just go like whole hunk of defense right there. I don't see anything at all this spread. And then for your next one, I was thinking like both these Pokemon benefit from Chen Pao, right? It's kind of like your standard sash Chen Pao. You got the Terra Ghost. It's your choice of Ice Spinner, Ice and Crash. You always want to throw Chop and Sucker Punch in the play games. They could sort of real. I personally like Icicle Crash, but Ice Spinner is definitely a better fit for this team. Right? Because you're kind of like that consistency is very much appreciated, and like the presence of Chen Pao itself allows you to help out these two, right? Because they don't really care about their own defensive stats, they just care about like doing that big physical damage as fast as you can. And Chen Pao allows you to take like such important KOs with these two I normally wouldn't be able to. Especially with Koraidon's close combat under Sword of Ruin. It's basically like for close combat, but it isn't doing that extra like 10%, which is always very important. And then the fourth Pokemon, I love Entei. Banded Entei, right? Because I love kind of like the Palate stuff, you know, Sword of Ruin, Extreme Speed, Banded, and all that. Yeah, obviously got moves like Sacred Fire, the aforementioned Extreme Speed, and then Entei has kind of a wide move pool, so you can afford to get really creative here. I like Stone Edge, right? Stone Edge because you can lead this Pokemon in an instant very, very easily, and this allows you to just like kind of boom, that instant slot is gone now. That would usually give a team like this lots of trouble, right? You have 4 Pokemon that are physical attackers, and only one of them can even like get intimidated, and then you have a decent amount of options from here. I like Crunch though, actually, because what Crunch does is it threatens CSR, and they don't even know it. Your opponent has no clue what is going to hit them. And then for EV Space, again, you don't need a lot of speed, right? Because you're always clicking that Extreme Speed button. There isn't like a lot in this metagame you need to have speed, like from the 120 to 152 benchmark. Let's go to the Reg I speed tier. So it's like right here. What here do we find like really important, guys? Be like maybe this Terrapagos, or like Santa really boom, right? Urshifu. There's like a lot of things. I think though that this 137 speed mark is where we want to be. So 138 is what we want to hit. So that'd be right here. 148 EVs in speed, 108 HP for both your defenses. And then this team kind of really sucks at Rage. Rage Bolt is incredible for that. Right, you have like your Proto Assault Vest, so you're getting like that small special attack boost, that really big special defense boost. You just want your quintessential moves, right? Thunderbolt, Thunderclap. There isn't a lot of thinking to be done about this moveset. You obviously got that Draco Meteor. I think this Pokemon is way better in a Koraidon than people think it is. If you train it like physically defensive enough, it's incredible in that Pokemon. You just kind of take a hit, like you might take 60 or 70, but you'll definitely be living. And then Draco is just like, oh, that Pokemon is gone now. Especially if you give it a more defensive EV spread. The one I like personally, you like to go 172 HP, 188 defense, and then 4 special attack. or no, 4 special defense and 4 speed. There we go. And if we go to the trusty damage calculator here, let's see. You just hit like Terror AV, and then 172, 188, plug it all in, 140, and your standard Koraidon, right? Like, the Life Orb close combat is doing 86 maximum, which is wild. And then Draco Meteor, obviously, it's killing. Even if they Terra, right? Draco Meteor has a chance to kill. And, like, if their defenses are lowered, it just will kill, right? Like, if the close combat hits, it's -1 special defense. This move is always a KO. And if, like, they're already terrified, you know they're gonna, close combat, you don't even have to actually, like, commit to the Draco and take the special attack drop. You can just Thunderbolt them, and it'll probably kill. And if not, you can Thunderclap them next turn. It's, like, this Pokemon is incredibly good into that Koraidon. Other things as well, like Zamazenta, you can switch in on Kyogre very easily, and like you can Volt Switch out on, say, like an Urshifu on the field, Tornadus. A lot of common Kyogre supporters do not like that Volt Switch button. And then for our last mon, Amoonguss. I like Amoonguss for support here. It's a very good supporting piece. You can go Cloak stuff, right? If you're not always getting slowed down by his turns. Terra Water fits rather well here. I mean, it fits rather well in any team, actually. And then Polypop, Rage Fighter, Spore, you know, Protect, right? And then for the EV spread, I like playing Bulky. This team, like, I can see this team struggling a fair bit in the Calyrex Ice Rider. And then that EV spread that I just put on screen there allows you to be able to live that big Glacial Lance hit and potentially Spore it. With the minus speed, 0 IV, it allows you to also be slower than it in Trick Room. So that they want to set that up on you, you can just kind of go into town and Spore their entire team. And so there is our second team of the night. And moving onward, I was thinking something more like hyper offensive, right? Because like this team is very much like balance offensive, the last one, but this team is going to be just kind of like you click the buttons and your opponent just dies. And of course, my favorite Pokemon to that was Calyrex Shadow. Calyrex Shadow and Zacian. The first ever restricted duo that I personally used, and it's always been a personal favorite. I think these two have just so much offensive pressure together. Calyrex item, you got options with the item, right? You could, like, if you're crazy, you can go Choice Specs. I think Focus Sash is just fine here, though. For, like, the purpose that it's supposed to be doing, I think it's alright. Focus Sash and a Terra Tail Ghost fit A-okay here. And then obviously want Astro Barrage. What is this Pokemon without this move? Expanding Forest for reasons you'll see later. And Nasty Plot. As well as Protect, right? I think this Pokemon has way more opportunities to get Max Plot than you think it does. Especially in Reg I closed team sheet, where this Pokemon has kind of not necessarily stopped, but kind of laid off the Nasty Plot, so your opponent will be expecting it less. They're kind of gonna want to play more defensive around more obvious Astro Barrages, and so you can catch them off guard with that. Like Terra Ghost plus your Astro Barrage can kind of just run through their whole team from there. And then with Zacian, you have options for the Terra, but I think Terra Water is the best one, right? You still keep the Ice Rider, Glacial Lance resist, you lose your ground weakness, you lose your fire weakness turned into resistance, you gain the water resistance for things like Kyogre. There's just so many things Terra Water can do with this Pokemon. And then you want your Behemoth Lead, your player if you Protect, right? The moves this Pokemon runs. You for the third, for that last, Sacred Sword is a very interesting pick, but I like it. it lets you beat Zacian way more convincingly. You could even go with a sword stance if you're really feeling risky. If you love the setup. I think we're gonna keep Sacred Sword though. And then for your EV spread, I like to hit this 209 speed bump here. Right, 207 to 209 with 1 point. Zacian doesn't need all of that speed, right? But this is where, like, you're still outspeeding that big speed tier of the base 135s. You don't really need to go much higher than that. And then, you have 2 very fast offensive restricteds. I think Whimsicott is just, like, the most obvious partner for these two, right? Kind of have like the standard Terra Dark, Sash, that, right? Moonblast, and then it does like things Whimsicott does. You click your tail in, right? You click Sunny Day, disrupt the weather on 4, right? You just kind of ruin your opponent's day. That's what this Pokemon is meant to do. I'd say Round on Your Parade, but that's the wrong weather move. That's more of a Tornadus thing. This Pokemon's very basic. If you want to, there are some interesting things you could do, right? Or if like you want to give like your Calyrex a Life Orb, even you can give your Whimsicott like a Focus Sash Endeavor set. I've seen that on ladder way too many times to count, but that's personally not my cup of tea. And then I think to round out these 3, Shiyu is an epic pick. It's kind of like the Scarf, you know, you're upping Calyrex's special damage, right? Allowing it to go like those Acid Rush KOs. You're kind of weakening things before it gets to them, so that you can rack up a special attack boost kind of wow all the way through their team with your standard moves that like Snarl for the mirror matchup, right? They're like EV spreads on this team, right? With the hyper offense, you don't need to think about them. It's 252, it's 252, you throw it off the wall, all as well. And then Indeed is a great mod to round this out. At least these 5. And kind of like this, the same one as the Indeedee on the Hard Tricker, right? They're very similar, except for this one. That last move was pretty obvious. You didn't want to imprison due to the fact like this team definitely struggles in the Hard Tricker because it's just a bunch of fast offensive Pokemon. Not being that Hard Tricker really sucks. Old Indeedee, so that like their DD can't really you can't get up to anything before yours does. Yours hits it like that percent. And then for the last Pokemon, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. I really don't. You could get really creative here. You could put Weezing on there. Because Zacian's ability is, well, 1, useless once it switches out, but 2, it's like a one-time thing, right? Where, like, you get the attack boost and then you switch in the Weezing. I think it's a very interesting spot you could take, right? Because Weezing also, like, loves that pairing with Calyrex Shadow, right? If you go Rocky Helmet, a lot of people aren't expecting, they're going to be faking this Pokemon out. Like, they're not, actually no, they're going to avoid faking this Pokemon out because it almost always likes to run Covert Cloak, and you can just kind of take advantage of that, right? Dazzling Gleam, Poison Gas, Toxic Spikes, Protect, like your standard Weezing set. You love that really physically defensive EV spread, but that's predictable. And I think especially defensive spread is the way to go. Because this Pokemon is like kind of like high enough physical defense, right? Where your opponent is going to like try to aim to hit it on that special side because they know that's where it's weak, and so if you can take advantage of that, I think that's where like this Pokemon can really, really shine. And there we have team number 3. I'm guessing. I'm hoping I'm correct. And then yes, team number 3. And like I honestly want to go for like another hyper offensive team because I think there's still so much more potential. Like we can even use like 2 entirely different restricteds. One of the pairings that I've been thinking of is Miraidon plus Kyogre, right? So what you do with these 2 is like you give them like the standard sets, right? Very dazzling, the choice specs. Electro Drift, Volt Switch, Draco Meteor, right, and like that's obviously a very powerful spread Dazzle Flame option. Let's see, the Modest Nature. And then for Kyogre, it's again just like clicking those water type moves that huge water type damage. Terra Grass for just the defensive capabilities, like being able to resist the Gorilla Boom, being immune to spores, things like that. All the electric moves that Raging Bolt is ever present in basically every metagame it ever will be in. It's kind of like your standard Mr. Water. You can go 252 on this one. You could also even go like kind of like a slower Kyogre, right? Where you hit. It's kind of speed bump for this thing to hit. Is there one? There is, right here. So I think this bump is good to hit, and then you just kind of put the rest in HP and defenses. Those. I like this 4-4, right? Because you're using there's 8 UVs to get two stats instead of 1. In total, it's kind of upping that efficiency a little bit. Also, it looks better on the Pokeface. That's the real reason I do this. And then Tornadus. Spoken like it's fits pretty well with these two, right? The Tailwind with the Miraidon, as well as the wait, what is it? Like the ability to set up the rain dances for Kyogre, get rid of like Miraidon's weather, right? Which also allows Miraidon to thrive more because it gets kind of Miraidon as always like feared Miraidon, due to like just like that such a right, damage potential. And then for this Tornado, I think definitely a more defensive spread, right? Something like this. Oh, stage 24 EVs, perfect. Because I think like this thing absolutely needs to be able to take a hit from Raging Bolt, Volt Switch, Thunderclap, whatever it may be. Taking that hit is incredibly important, so that you can be a more supportive piece for Kyogre, stick on the field a little bit longer, and like an extra rain dance against a Cryo, which is very important. I'm not sure how much this actually matters, the electric terrain, but I like it like this anyways. And then for your last three, just kind of more like, I wouldn't say support, right? Like, this Urshifu, Scarf Urshifu. Just kind of like your wonderful pick on these Kyogre teams. I like Terrastellar on Scarf Urshifu, right? That big close combat, that big one-time surging strikes, you're doing massive damage to at least one target. Then obviously Aqua Jet plus Pumpkin turn. Great. Adamant Nature. Still speaking CSR, speeding everything you need to, and then just you're killing everything in the rain. Give you that much. And like the other two, I like this slow trigger more, like the Iron Hands Ferreira that you see on these more Miraidon based teams. Like all the Miraidon teams have these two, and I think they fit incredibly well. Kyogre hates priority with like the Grassy Glide, right? Things like that. Iron Hands also kind of helps with like Kyogre. Like Fake Out support, and Iron Hands being able to provide that is very useful. The Tricker mode also helps Kyogre because it's like it's a bit slower than the other restricted, right? It's definitely not like a slow Pokemon, but it's definitely like not the fastest in terms of like the rest of the Pokemon. Like relatively, it is slow. Here's standard Iron and spread. You guys have seen this 1,000 times on the channel. And then same thing with for Reg, the Terra Water, Electric Seed. I think this is actually more of an Imprison team. Like Trick Room, Imprison, Helping Hand, and Foul Play for Forces. And so you can go to like the Bold Nature, It's electricity, so you don't need as much defense. So you can, the spread is fine, but you can take a bit out of the special defense, put it into speed so that you can, it enables you to kind of block other photographs before they can get their moves and stuff they want to. And there is team number 4. And for our 5th team tonight, I was thinking we could go a little slower, right? We've been doing all these hyper-offensive teams, but I think taking it low and slow is very nice. And I think the best restricted duo to take it low and slow is Terapagos and Ho-Oh. I think you can just play like a really good stall-based core with these. I'm not sure how it will work out. Stall and Regulation Eye is kind of a really represented idea, right? Let's see. Because it involves your standard Coleman Pagos. You want that really defensive EV spread, that bold nature. It has speed EVs to outspeed things like, I guess, CSR and Taiwan is good. It's always a good benchmark, right? Or like, you always want to be like at least half of CSR's speed with your restricted. You can do this with Ho-Oh as well. You'd be a little bit faster. You always want to be like faster or slower, or you never want both your restricted to be the same speed. You want that consistency. You want to know which one's going to hit first. So you can kind of build these two out. Be really bulky. Let's see. There we go. And then Ho likes Terra Grass, right? Those water moves, the electric moves, give it the neutrality to those rock moves, and then for your moveset, just kind of like the 2 double stabs are always really good. I think Life Dew is very good on this team, right? You can attack Terapagos, get that Life Dew up, regenerate ability, so then you can get like a pivoting core going on. And with that, you can just kind of consistently heal your Ho-Oh. You can Life Dew, you can consistently heal your Terapagos as well. Right, there's tons of things that you can do with these two. Let's see. Brimstone and Raging Bull, I think, are a very good defensive backing from this spot, right? You know, kind of like a light clay. There we go. Idea. Terra Ghost, right? Foul Play. Here's the thing. Thunderwave is always like right there, but I think I've discussed this before. Scary Face is an option I like, hit them right on and stuff. I think that's what we're gonna do with this one. I think Scary Face is more valuable an option. And then you have the more physically defensive oriented one. With the, where is it? Relaxed, kinda slow, random snarl, hitting those Calyrexes in short term. Oh yeah, Ice Riders, and then as well as Awa. Same as Sylvis, Raging Bull spread from earlier, right? Corona is still a really big issue for this team. Like, Ho-Oh on paper deals with it, but the other Pokemon that it's surrounded by give it kind of an issue. I think number one thing Pokemon Showdown should do is allow you to save EV spreads. I wouldn't have to do this every time. But alas, this is the world we live in. And then for our last two, we got like another defensive mon. Defensive Grass type, I think is good. You got a couple options. You got Ogre from Cornerstone, right? Because it allows you to get like those follow me, top follow me, Calm Mind, right? But also, whoa, shit. I don't know where this Pokemon is going, and I don't think it's very far. But it could be. I don't know. I actually won't really ruin this slot, but I have Sylvis Raging Bull, so I can't use Rillaboom in this slot. I still think Overpon is the better option. Sturdy plus Follow Me is just that good, and Wo-Chen, I don't really think has anything that can compensate for that. As well as, like, the longer you're on the field, the more susceptible you are to being crit. Which, yeah, that, like, already applies to this entire team, but you don't, like, when building a stall team, like, it's kind of counterintuitive, but you want to minimize that as much as possible, right? like you want it to be slow play, right? But you don't want to exactly maybe stall. Maybe stall is the wrong word. Maybe you want to just kind of do way more damage than your opponent because of your defensive capabilities. But you also like have some offensive ones, like this Urshisu here. It's kind of like the standard sash, right? Taunt, I think, is good, stopping other taunts, stopping scores and follow me's and stuff like that. And then just stand in close combat and protect with the good old sash out of it. And there we go. That is our 5th and final team for the night. Again, all of these will be in the description below. Be able for you, ready and available for you to use in the global challenge just 1 week with any one of these 10 restricteds shown here. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'd be very glad if you use these teams. Be sure to like and subscribe for more VGC content. With that all being said, goodbye and good night.